Well,
LaVonna,
hello.
hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you, Kevin?
I'm great. We're all just trying to figure out this technology curve, and it's a fun adventure.
Yes, yes. I'm adjusting. Let's see here. They sort of
Yeah.
do like not right in my face, and I
Yeah.
just realized my AirPods are dead, and I'm like, okay, we're just
Oh
gonna
no.
break out all this. Yeah, yeah. I'm usually very good about that, but not today. So, but
Yeah.
thanks for your patience
Oh,
on
no
this.
problem at all. I mean, I'm doing the same thing. Yesterday I had a couple interviews, and I wasn't using these earbuds, and all of a sudden my volume just went away, and I'm like, oh no, what do I do now? So,
Yes. Oh my
yeah,
goodness. Yes.
yeah. So we just have to learn how to roll with the punches, right? And that's the best we can do.
I think we're
So,
doing a lot of that these days.
for sure. So
Yeah.
first of all, I know many people have heard your name. Uh, you started off as a teacher, correct?
Yep. Yep.
And
You got it.
yeah, and then you made this huge transition. You've become somebody who's well known to train teachers and to help teachers through their own journey. So one thing I'm really curious about is what made you take that jump? What made you decide from, I'm enjoying being in the classroom, I love my kids, to saying, you know what, I think I've got something special that would work for other teachers as well. I'm going to start Ignite My Shine.
Well, first of all, thank you. I appreciate that. It's always interesting to hear these things about yourself because you don't always think of them that way.
For sure.
But no, I didn't ever plan on it. I taught for 10 years, elementary and secondary level, and absolutely loved it. And
Hmm.
as a matter of fact, I had one point became a single mom, so I thought my
Hmm.
next step would be administration. It's not really where
Hmm.
I planned on going, but it's where I thought, okay, to be honest with you, financially,
Yeah.
it was a way to go, and
Hmm.
so I went back and got my master's, my second master's in that, and
Hmm.
then I had an opportunity to step away. And one
Hmm.
thing led to another, and finally, after multiple experiences, some very, very good and some not so good experiences, I said,
Hmm.
you know what? If people can run a company doing this, then I can too. And I didn't know what that meant, Kevin. I had
Hmm.
no idea what all goes into it. I didn't even know where to
Yeah.
start, but somehow I jumped, and here we are 12 years later, as of April
Wow.
8th, 12 years that I've been doing this. Yeah, it's crazy.
Congratulations. That's a big
Thank
landmark.
you. Yes, it is because they say a lot of, first years, what is it?
Mhm.
Something like 90% of businesses that start in the first year get lost. I can't remember. I don't even know what the new statistics
Yeah.
are, but then the first 3 years, it's like crazy as well. And so,
Mhm. It's almost
yeah.
like teachers in general too, because teachers burn out those first couple years. If you make it
Yes.
past that like year five mark, then you start to get a rhythm. Then you start to feel really good, and you're more likely to stay. So yeah, definitely the
Yes.
same with businesses. So you have a program, it works, it's very helpful. Um, One thing that I'm really curious about as well, and I've had the opportunity to see you speak live. I've seen you speak, on videos as well. And one thing that's great about you is you always bring that same level of energy. And it doesn't matter, what the stage is or who you're talking to. You have a wonderful energy. Something we
Oh,
talk about a lot in the academic mindset is the idea of your prep, your pre-routine. How are you getting ready for a class, whether you're a teacher or a student? So for you, is there any kind of routine or anything that helps you get ready to bring that energy every time you speak?
yeah. First of all, I'm gonna give a lot of credit to the passion. I have a
Hmm.
passion for what I do, and anyone who knows me knows I'm actually an introvert. I have a high extrovert side. I love to be around people, I get energy
Hmm.
from people, but I also can get drained pretty quickly. So I have this introverted side, and so for me, one of the big things is sometimes, especially in the beginning, I started to get in my head when it came to speaking. Like I was
Yeah.
in my head going, "You are nobody. I don't know why you're doing this. Who do you think you are? This message is dumb. People are not going to like you." And to publicly speak, I don't know where you got this idea. I used to have the self-talk in my head with and I had to like learn to shut down the voices. And so a big part of that of if I ever start to have those voices, because to this day they still like to creep in at times,
Of
is
course.
to say to myself, yeah, it's not about me, it's about the message.
Hmm.
And I am so passionate about the message that I bring, and seeing just people realize the greatness that they have about themselves, and to watch any kind of sadness or anger or frustration or I'm not good enough just kind of melt away. I absolutely, that whole, I could get on a whole, piece just about that. So
Hmm.
that's a part of it. But I also have a little bit of a routine.
Hmm.
Right before I go on, either it depends on my mood, either
Hmm.
I'm very talkative and it's the nervous energy coming out, or
Okay.
I will want to be by myself because I'm starting to gather my thoughts. And so, it would be a lie to say that every time I'm like, oh, I get to speak, I'm so excited. That would be a lie, because that's not all the time. Most of the time, yes. So what I do in those cases is I put on songs, and
Okay.
I literally jam out, and it takes me like 15 to 30 seconds of a song, and all of a sudden I believe there's a huge state shift when it comes to music anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I put that song on, I'm like, okay, here we go. And it has nothing to do with anybody at that point. It's more of what's happening that day, or just maybe my energy is a little bit low, but that's such a fast shift with that. And just, I love all the smiles. Like, it's really
Yeah.
hard when I'm getting ready to speak. It's very hard for me to go around the room and introduce myself and say hi to people, what brought
Mm-hmm.
you here, if it's a conference, and ask where you're from. I want to talk, but that introverted side of me says they don't care. You're
Mm-hmm.
interrupting them. Again, those voices. So I have to have
Yeah.
this conversation with myself and say, get out of your head, stop it. Like, who cares? Go meet them. Just go meet them. So there's a
Yeah.
variety of things that happen.
No, that's excellent. And I know you're very personable when you're up there, but we all have that same inner voice. And it doesn't matter how confident you are. It doesn't matter how much you believe in your message or, what you're doing. We all have that moment where we're like, does anybody really care? And
Yeah.
it's really easy to get nervous. So it's good to have those kind of like a set routine or different habits, things that we can do to just pull ourselves out of that. Because if not, that voice just kind of, swallows us. And then you do miss out on a great opportunity. I know you've been influencing a lot of people. I hear so much great feedback about you. And
Thanks.
it would be a shame if you're like, yeah, I'm too nervous to go up today. So, uh,
Right. Right. And that's what, again, it's that focus of, and that's why, honestly, I actually oftentimes ask to not be introduced,
yeah.
because the moment you're introducing me, one, nobody really cares, in my opinion. And
Hmm.
but if they do care, then they've already Googled you,
Yeah.
so they already have the information about you. And then the other part is that introductions, a lot is running through my head right now, but
Hmm.
introductions also, to me, kill it.
Hmm.
It's not coming out and just kicking it off and jumping right in. It's that. And then the third part is, that's even most important for me, is that the moment you start introducing and you go through my whole bio and
Hmm.
this and that, I now get in my head about, it's about me, and we just went
Hmm.
introverted again, instead of it's about the message. So a lot
Right.
of times I say, instead of introducing me, you know your people the best. So if introducing me is what you think is best for your people, please, go ahead and do that. But I'd rather you just say, what about the message are you excited about to share? Why do you want this message here? And
Yeah.
that, to me, is just a lot more of a relief.
Yeah. And I think you and I both, being on that teacher side and, having gone through so many professional developments and different meetings and conferences, you're not really interested in the bio of the person. You don't want to hear all their accomplishments. You want to know, why are you here today to help me? And,
Yes.
what do you have to offer me? So the quicker you can get into that and get rolling, the more you're going to be confident and the more your
Mhm.
audience is going to be buying in, for
Yes.
sure.
Yes. You're,
Uh,
you're totally right.
yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you about is, I've seen you already, putting on webinars and doing things like that. And teachers now, we're kind of thrown into this. You've got to shift everything online. You've got to find a way to engage people from a faraway distance. Do you have any advice for teachers who are trying to make this quick transition and trying to, kind of throw it all together at once?
No, I have no advice. No, I'm just kidding. I have my 2 cents.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
I think it's huge right now Kevin, you said the exact words that I think so many people are thinking, and that's that it's doing all of this at once.
Hmm.
And that's what we have to break through. No one can do everything at once, or if they try to do it, they won't do it well. All right.
Hmm.
So what is the one thing that you want to change today or this week? Whatever that window needs to be, bring it down. What's the one thing that you want to do? Is it you want to have more engagement with your students? Is it that you want to teach them one new tool to be able to use going forward online? Is it you want to talk to them about the policies that have shifted, such as here's how we're doing attendance, here's how we're doing
Right.
grading, right? So I say one thing at a time. So for me personally, what I have to do, and I'm looking at it right now, but I have a planner, and I literally break everything down and I
Hmm.
prioritize the order that I'm doing it in. And so, because what I found is a lot of times I plan way too big, like most people. I say, okay, so we're going online, we're going to go virtual. So that means I'm going to do this and this and this and this and this and this and this.
Hmm.
And then we get a little bit of paralysis, right?
Yeah.
Or at the end of the day, we look at it and go, you know what? I only got 3 of my 25,000 things done. I was not very productive today.
Hmm.
That's not true, So if you can create that list of all of the things that are definite a priority, Like right now, they are important. Categorize those into, a numerical prioritization. And then look at the next thing like, okay, this is kind of a little bit of a dream list. Like this is the
Yeah.
wish list of where I'd like to be. And be thinking about those things and taking baby steps towards it. But I think so many times we just try to take off too much.
Mm-hmm.
It just gets to be overwhelming. And then the other second part I'll say to this too that I think is really big now, especially with social media. But
Mm-hmm.
I also think in this time frame right now is you have teachers coming in at different levels. So you have
Yeah.
teachers who already knew technology, right? They are
Mm-hmm.
set, they're going, so you see them here. And
Right.
then you see the people that are already putting all these dynamic lessons in place and their student
Mm-hmm.
engagement's high and they're getting things back from their students. Their students are online virtually with them.
Right.
And we create this whole comparison game. And it's the same thing, like I
Mm-hmm.
said, for social media.
Yeah.
Don't compare. That does no good for you. No good for you at all. If you want to compare to say, okay, there's where I could get. I
Mm-hmm.
love it. How can I get there? And as a motivation, I'm all about it. But the moment you start comparing and you're thinking, well, that I'm not very good at, and that I'm terrible at, and how did they do that? I'll never be able
Mm-hmm.
to do it. Your self-talk, your mindset of where you're going to be, you are completely working against yourself and losing so much brain power with it. So I would rather see
Absolutely.
people stop comparing, do
Mm-hmm.
you, right? Do you, and you just continue to make that progress. I give the same exact advice to the students I have now that I'm teaching. I have a course for the first time and I'm teaching people how to get into educational consultant. As a matter of fact, I saw one of my students
Yeah.
on here. I'm so excited she's on here.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, and she's already consultant.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's already amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But looking at upping her game, well, we would never take somebody who's brand new at that and say, well, how
Mm-hmm.
come you're not at her level? How come you're not doing what she's
Right.
doing? Right? No, we'd never do that because you're all at a different, I say, mile marker.
Mm-hmm. No,
So
absolutely. That's great advice. I mean, when you think about the first thing you said, having that priority list, and let's get one thing knocked out. And when we feel good about that one thing, then we move on to the next. I remember when I had to make this shift, as soon as schools were canceled, my first thing was, okay, how do I communicate with students? And that's what I spent my time doing. And I know I could have, put together these fabulous lessons or made some videos. I didn't care about that. I had to take care of step one. Then we can take care of step two. But, it's a teacher habit, I think, is we all get in the groove of we have to do everything. The world will fall apart if we don't. And, that extra pressure doesn't really help us. It only,
you're exactly right. And
right.
I think teaching is such a personal profession, not that
Yeah.
others aren't,
Mm-hmm.
but everything we put our heart and soul into it because we care so much about kids. And so because of
100%. Yeah.
that, it becomes a very personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if we see ourselves not as good, and I'm really going to put air quotes, not as good as
Yeah.
someone else, not the level of somebody
Mm-hmm.
else, that's the stuff that we need to stop. Right?
Yeah.
We have got to stop that dead in the tracks. And so,
Mm-hmm.
it's when you said, Kevin, I want to recognize what you just said too about connecting with your students. That is more important than anything.
Yeah.
Like I am very big into brain research and how the brain learns and such. And
Mm-hmm.
all of us, every single person pretty much across the world at this point is in some level of a survival mode instead of a thinking
Yes.
mode.
Mm-hmm.
And our students, I say this all the time, is why I'm big on SEL,
Mm-hmm.
and ignite your shine targets, that thing in
Mm-hmm.
the whole child is that if we're in a state of survival, we are not learning. So,
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, what you're doing for your students, the best thing you could do because you're transitioning them that, hey, I know we're in a separate location now, but
Mm-hmm.
I've got you. You are safe with me. I'm here to help you and support you however I can. I didn't go anywhere. I didn't disappear on you. I am still here for you.
Right.
And you kept that relationship going. That is number one, because then we can start talking about the learning that follows.
100%. And if you don't have that piece, then it really defeats the purpose of the curriculum. You're
Yeah.
not going to get it across. So,
Yeah.
absolutely. I want to be respectful of your time, but I do want to see if there's any last advice that you have for teachers or for students who maybe are getting a little stuck comparing themselves, or maybe they're just getting overwhelmed by, the burden that's been placed on them. Because students have a burden placed on them too now of having to learn a whole new way to learn while they might be dealing with taking care of family, missing out on opportunities that they were hoping for, right? So what would you tell them to try to keep them positive, moving forward, and, making the most out of what opportunities they do have?
Yeah, so I think routines are so huge right now, is having
Yeah.
some kind of a routine. And part of that routine to me is limiting social media.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for example, one of my things is when I get up in the morning, I'm not always successful, but I really work at not being on
Mm-hmm.
social media at first. And it's not, I don't have a comparison thing. Like for some reason that doesn't get to me and I don't know why. But for me, it's more of, it sucks me in to
Mm-hmm.
everything, and I start looking, and the next thing I know, I'm like, where did that 30 minutes go?
Yeah.
And I could be using my time more wisely. So when we think about the transition that's happened and keeping our mindset, where we need it to be to be like, yeah, profitable with our time, with our
Mm-hmm.
resources, with where we're heading and our goals, is making sure that you put those things in the beginning of your day. Like
Right.
I'm big on gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a fluff thing. It puts your mind into a totally different set, which is where you want it to be. And when we talk about routines, routine creates structure and it creates safety.
Mm-hmm.
So if I know that when I get up, I do X, Y, and Z, and when I go to bed, I go do I 1, 2, and 3,
Mm-hmm.
and then maybe around lunchtime I have a certain thing. That right there creates a certain structure with my day. It's always going to look different elsewhere, but if I have those things, it's huge. So for students, having a
Yeah.
specific time when you're going to do certain work, unless that's mandated to you, you may not have as much flexibility.
Right.
But
Mm-hmm.
I know some are requiring students, yes, you have to be on at this time, and others are like, no, I just need to hear from you twice throughout the day. We
Mm-hmm.
have it kind of all over. And so if we can create some kind of a structure and have students create that structure, teachers create some kind of a structure, it will help you mentally overall.
Absolutely. Habits, having gratitude. I agree with you. Gratitude has nothing to do with fluff. It's a very important step in making sure that you're happy, first of all, and that you're moving forward. If you don't have that gratitude piece, it's really hard to stay productive and stay motivated.
I agree. I agree. And it was something that was interesting because my daughter one time said, hey, Mom, we should do a gratitude journal together.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I don't have time to do a gratitude journal. Like, that was my exact thought.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, I'll give you a challenge. Like, let's do it
Mm-hmm.
together. And I thought, okay. So I ordered the same gratitude journal she did. And after like it wasn't even the first week, it was sooner than that. But then 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
later, I was amazed. I was just like, because in the morning, I mean, I'm a morning person anyway. Like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
wake up grumpy or anything like that. But
Right.
just to take that time to immediately, before I got out of bed, I grabbed the journal, I grabbed a pen, and I started writing. And I remember thinking, I'm going to run out of things. Like, there's only
Mm-hmm.
so many things you can be grateful for. And it was amazing every day, like little tiny things that you never even thought about. Like my
Mm-hmm.
daughter said the other day, she put in hers that she realized on her plant that little flowers that she didn't know this plant that would create flowers had flowers on it. And so it's
Mm-hmm.
just so cool to see how much you can add to that and keep that going, and yet that be your focus.
Yeah, and doing things like writing it down. I mean, a lot of times we have like a mini second of gratitude, like, oh, there's flowers on that plant. And then you shrug your shoulders and you forget. But
Yeah,
once you hit that gratitude journal and you actually write it down and you make it real, then you realize how fulfilling that kind of moment is. So,
it
um,
is.
yeah, that is excellent advice, LaVonna. Look, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really fun talking to you. And, I hope everything just continues to be positive and move forward. Keep going with your Ignite Your Shine. I know a lot of people are enjoying that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on here. It's been a
Uh,
joy. And thanks for letting me do the first Instagram Live with you.
I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. And no
Yes, same to
technology
you.
problems this time. We did good.
I know.
Yeah.
Yay. Success.
Yeah. All right. Take care, LaVonna. Nice
You
seeing you.
too.